PZL P.11, Poland's Gullid fighter. At 05:30 hours on September 1st, 1939, podporucznik Władysław Gnyś ran across grass toward his PZL P.11C at Balas airfield near Krakow. Air raid sirens wail. German bombs are already falling on the city. His squadron commander, Kapitan Mieczysław Medwecki, reaches his aircraft first. The two fighters, serial numbers unknown but belonging to the 121st Fighter Escadra, start their engines. Bristol Mercury 5.S2 radial engines producing 645 horsepower each. The sound is rough, urgent. The P.11C weighs 1,160 kilograms empty, 1,650 kilograms loaded. Wingspan 10.72 meters. Length 7.55 meters. Maximum speed at 5,000 meters. 390 kilometers per hour. Service ceiling 9,500 meters. Armament: two 7.92 millimeter machine guns in the fuselage, synchronized to fire through the propeller arc. Some P.11Cs carry two additional guns in the wings. Gnyś's aircraft has only the two fuselage guns, 400 rounds per gun, approximately 20 seconds of sustained fire. The aircraft's most distinctive feature sits above Gnyś's head. The wing, mounted high on the fuselage in a gull configuration, angles sharply upward from the wing roots before extending horizontally. This design, called the Puławski wing after its creator Zygmunt Puławski, provides unobstructed forward and downward visibility. Gnyś can see the ground directly below. He can see ahead without the engine blocking his view. The gull wing, revolutionary in 1931, gives Polish pilots advantages that more modern designs cannot match. At 05:43 hours, both P.11Cs taxi to takeoff position. Medwecki leads. Gnyś follows 30 meters behind. They receive no clearance, no formal orders. German aircraft are overhead. The base is under attack. Takeoff is the only response. Medwecki's P.11C accelerates, lifts off, begins climbing. Gnyś follows 10 seconds later. At 300 meters altitude, two shapes dive from above. Junkers Ju-87 Stuka dive bombers from 1st Gruppe. Sturzkampfgeschwader 2 Immelmann. Unteroffizier Frank Neubert, piloting the lead Stuka, fires his two 7.92 millimeter machine guns. Medwecki's P.11C absorbs multiple hits. The aircraft rolls left, descends, impacts ground near the airfield perimeter. Kapitan Mieczysław Medwecki, age 33, experienced pilot and squadron commander, becomes the first aircraft casualty of World War II. Gnyś pulls hard left, attempting to evade the second Stuka. His P.11C, with its excellent low-speed maneuverability and responsive controls, turns inside the diving bomber. The Stuka overshoots. Gnyś reverses, climbs, searches for targets. The Stukas are gone, diving toward the city. But ahead, at 3,000 meters, he spots two more aircraft. Dornier, Do-17 bombers from 77th Bomber Regiment, returning from a raid on Krakow railway station. He climbs toward them. The P.11C's rate of climb, 600 meters per minute at sea level, decreases with altitude. At 3,000 meters, it achieves perhaps 400 meters per minute. The Dorniers, cruising at 350 kilometers per hour, gradually draw closer as Gnyś pursues. At 05:07 hours, he reaches firing range, 200 meters separation. He aims carefully, fires a sustained burst, 200 rounds from both guns. The tracers stream toward the lead Dornier. Impacts visible on fuselage and left engine. The engine begins smoking. The bomber rolls left, descending rapidly. The second Dornier turns toward Gnyś. Its defensive armament, multiple 7.92 millimeter MG-15 machine guns, opens fire. Gnyś breaks right, evades, repositions, attacks again from below. Another sustained burst, 150 rounds. The second Dornier's right engine erupts in flame. The bomber and its wingman, both damaged, collide during evasive maneuvers. Both aircraft fall toward Earth trailing smoke and debris. Both crash in open fields south of Krakow. Władysław Gnyś, in an obsolete Polish fighter armed with two machine guns, has achieved the first Allied aerial victories of World War II. The combat lasts 4 minutes. His ammunition is expended. He returns to Balas airfield, lands, reports the engagement. Intelligence officers are skeptical. No one believes a P.11C could shoot down modern German bombers, but fragments recovered from the crash sites show bullet holes matching 7.92 millimeter ammunition. The kills are confirmed. This engagement defines the September campaign in miniature. Polish pilots in outclassed aircraft achieving momentary success through skill, determination, and advantage exploitation. Then overwhelming German superiority grinding down resistance through numbers, coordination. Modern equipment. The P.11, advanced in 1934, obsolete by 1939, becomes the symbol of Poland's impossible fight. Understanding the P.11C requires understanding the man who designed it, Zygmunt Puławski, born 1901 in Lublin. Graduated from Warsaw Technical University in 1924. Joined Państwowe Zakłady Lotnicze, the state aircraft factory in Warsaw, in 1927. Poland's aviation industry then consisted of licensed production of foreign designs, French Podas bombers, British Bristol fighters. No domestic designs existed. Puławski determined to change this. His first design, the P.1, flew September 1929. The aircraft, powered by a Hispano-Suiza inline engine, featured Puławski's revolutionary wing configuration. Traditional parasol wings mounted above the fuselage on struts blocked the pilot's view upward and forward. Low wings provided better forward visibility but obstructed downward vision. Puławski's solution: mount the wing high on the fuselage but angle the wing roots downward to meet the fuselage directly, eliminating center section struts. The result: excellent visibility in all directions, reduced drag from eliminated struts, structural strength from wing attachment directly to fuselage. The gull wing, as it became known internationally, attracted immediate attention. Aviation engineers worldwide recognized its advantages. Several nations inquired about license production. The Polish government, recognizing they possessed valuable intellectual property, restricted export. Puławski would develop improved versions exclusively for Polish service. The P.7, entering production in 1932, equipped the first units. Powered by a Bristol Jupiter radial engine producing 585 horsepower. The P.7 achieved 340 km per hour maximum speed. 150 aircraft were built. They represented Poland's first domestically designed combat aircraft entering squadron service. But Puławski envisioned better. The Bristol Mercury engine, an improved radial design with smaller diameter and higher power output, became available in 1930. Installing the Mercury in a refined airframe would create a fighter competitive with any in service. Development began late 1930 as the P.11. Puławski never saw it enter service. On March 21, 1931, he flew as passenger in a Lublin R-3 observation aircraft conducting test flights near Warsaw. The aircraft entered a spin at low altitude. The pilot, Engineer Stanisław Cyganiewicz, attempted recovery. The aircraft impacted ground near Mokotów airfield. Both men died instantly. Zygmunt Puławski was 29 years old. His colleagues at PZL, devastated by the loss, determined to complete his work. Wojciech Jakimiuk, assigned as chief designer, continued P.11 development. The first prototype flew August 1931. Test pilot Bolesław Orliński reported excellent handling, good performance, satisfactory stability. The aircraft demonstrated clear superiority over biplane fighters, then equipping most air forces. Specifications evolved through testing. The P.11 used an all-metal semi-monocoque fuselage, circular and cross-section forward transitioning to oval aft, duralumin construction throughout, fabric-covered control surfaces for weight reduction, fixed landing gear with streamlined fairings, open cockpit providing outstanding visibility through the gull wing configuration. The Bristol Mercury radial engine, mounted behind a town-end ring cowling, drove a two-blade fixed-pitch propeller. The Polish Air Force ordered 30 P.11A models in spring 1933. These aircraft, powered by Polish-built Skoda Works, Mercury. 4.S2 engines producing 515 horsepower, equipped the first fighter squadron in late 1933. Performance impressed pilots. Maximum speed, 350 kilometers per hour at 5,000 meters. Service ceiling, 8,500 meters. Range, 550 kilometers. Armament, two 7.92mm Vickers machine guns synchronized to fire through the propeller arc. But Jakimiuk recognized improvements remained possible. The Mercury 5 engine, producing 645 horsepower with smaller frontal area than the Mercury 4, became available in 1934. Installing it would increase speed and climb rate significantly. Additionally, lowering the engine placement 13 centimeters would improve pilot visibility over the cowling. the fuselage could be lengthened, providing more comfortable cockpit space and better weight distribution. The improved variant, designated P.11C, entered production mid-1934. First deliveries reached squadrons late 1935. The differences from P.11A were immediately apparent. The refined fuselage, longer and more streamlined, looked more modern. The lowered engine improved sight lines. The cockpit moved 30 centimeters rearward and raised 5 centimeters, provided better working conditions. The wings incorporated minor refinements improving airflow. Performance increased across all measures. Maximum speed at 5,000 meters, 390 kilometers per hour. Service ceiling, 9,500 meters. Time to 5,000 meters, 6 minutes. Range, 700 kilometers with standard fuel load. Armament typically remained 2 fuselage-mounted 7.92 millimeter machine guns, though approximately one-third of production aircraft received 2 additional wing-mounted guns for total armament of 4 machine guns. The P.11C represented the most modern fighter in service when deliveries began in late 1935. Its all-metal construction, cantilever wing, enclosed streamlined fuselage, and powerful engine exceeded most contemporaries. The British Gloucester Gauntlet biplane, entering service 1935, achieved 345 kilometers per hour maximum speed. The German Heinkel 51 biplane, introduced 1935, reached 330 kilometers per hour. The Soviet Polikarpov F-15 biplane achieved 370 kilometers per hour. The P.11C's 390 kilometers per hour made it the fastest fighter in operational service. But aviation technology accelerated rapidly through the late 1930s. The Messerschmitt Bf 109, first flying 1935, entered Luftwaffe service 1937. Its Junkers Jumo 210 inline engine, producing 680 horsepower, drove the aircraft to 470 kilometers per hour. Retractable landing gear reduced drag. Enclosed cockpit improved pilot comfort. Armament consisted of 3 7.92 millimeter machine guns, later increased to 4 guns and 1 20 millimeter cannon. The Supermarine Spitfire, first flying March 1936, achieved 575 kilometers per hour, powered by a Rolls-Royce Merlin producing 1,030 horsepower. The Hawker Hurricane, entering service December 1937, reached 520 kilometers per hour. The Soviet Polikarpov F-16, though retaining open cockpit and fixed landing gear, achieved 470 kilometers per hour. By 1938, the P.11C's speed advantage had evaporated. New fighters exceeded it by 100 to 200 kilometers per hour. The fixed landing gear created excessive drag. The open cockpit limited high-speed flight. The Mercury engine, excellent for its time, could not match newer designs. The P.11C, most advanced fighter in 1935, became obsolete by 1938. The Polish Air Force recognized this. Plans for replacement began immediately. The PZL P.50 Jastrząb, a modern monoplane with retractable gear and enclosed cockpit, entered development 1937. Expected maximum speed, 550 kilometers per hour. Powered by a Bristol Mercury 15 producing 840 horsepower. The P.50 would restore Polish competitiveness. Development proceeded slowly. Engine delivery delays. Structural problems. Aerodynamic refinements. The first prototype flew February 1939. Performance disappointed. Maximum speed reached only 512 kilometers per hour. Armament remained inadequate. Further development would require months. The Polish government, recognizing indigenous development, could not produce modern fighters quickly enough. Ordered foreign aircraft. 120 Morane-Saulnier M.S 406 fighters from France. 14 Hawker Hurricane fighters from Britain. 1 Supermarine Spitfire for evaluation. 100 Fairey Battle-Light bombers. None were delivered before September 1939. On September 1st, 1939, the Polish Air Force fields 109 P.11C fighters, 20 P.11A fighters, and 30 P.7A fighters in combat units. An additional 43 P.11C aircraft sit in reserve or undergoing repairs. Total operational strength, 159 fighters, divided among 12 escadras of 10 aircraft each. The escadras form 6 divisions of 20 aircraft each. 2 divisions, 4 escadras, 40 aircraft, constitute the pursuit brigade defending Warsaw. The remainder deploy with field armies across Poland. Against them, the Luftwaffe masses 2,000 aircraft in the eastern provinces. This includes over 200 Bf-109 fighters, 100 Bf-110 heavy fighters, over 1,000 bombers. The numerical advantage exceeds 10-1. The technological advantage is overwhelming. Every German fighter outperforms the P.11C by wide margins. Polish defensive planning attempts to compensate. Fighter units dispersed to improvised field airfields days before the invasion. German intelligence, expecting to destroy the Polish Air Force on the ground, as happened in Poland's war games, finds the main bases empty. The opening strikes destroy obsolete training aircraft, spare parts, fuel stocks, maintenance facilities. Combat aircraft, hidden in forests and farm fields, survive. At 045 hours, September 1st, Luftwaffe bombers strike targets across western Poland: Kraków, Warsaw, Łódź, Poznań, Katowice, railway stations, military bases, communication centers. The Polish Air Force scrambles all available fighters. The first interceptions occur between 0530 and 0630 hours. Ganish's combat near Kraków represents the first confirmed engagement. Dozens of others follow within minutes. Over Warsaw, 40 Polish fighters from the Pursuit Brigade intercept a formation of 80 Heinkel, 111 bombers escorted by 20 Bf-109 fighters. The Polish P.11C fighters, climbing to intercept altitude, encounter the Messerschmitts at 4,000 meters. The ensuing combat reveals the performance gap starkly. The Bf-109 dives from altitude, reaching speeds exceeding 600 kilometers per hour. Polish pilots, watching the enemy approach, attempt to evade. The P.11C, with maximum dive speed limited to 500 kilometers per hour, cannot escape. Multiple Polish fighters sustain damage from slashing attacks. But when the Germans attempt turning combat, the situation reverses. The P.11C turns exceptionally well. Its low wing loading, approximately 94 kilograms per square meter compared to the Bf-109's 176 kilograms per square meter, allows tighter turn radius. Polish pilots, exploiting this advantage, reverse into pursuing Messerschmitts. Several Germans, surprised by the maneuverability, become targets themselves. Porucznik Władysław Piątkowski damages one Bf-109, forcing it to withdraw with smoking engine. Podporucznik Leopold Pamula shoots down a second. Confirmed by German records showing Unteroffizier Horst Tietzen killed when his aircraft crashed near Wołomin. But turning combat requires equal energy states. The Messerschmitts, diving from altitude, possess speed advantage. They attack, break away, climb, attack again. The Polish fighters, perpetually reacting, cannot force sustained engagement. When ammunition expends or fuel runs low, the Germans disengage at will. Their superior speed guarantees escape. The bomber formation, meanwhile, proceeds to target. Polish fighters attempting interception face defensive crossfire from 80 He-111s, each mounting three 7.92mm machine guns. Attacking requires flying through concentrated fire. Podporucznik Henryk Szary presses an attack, closes to 100 meters. Fires sustain burst. His P.11C absorbs multiple defensive hits. One engine cylinder destroyed. Oil pressure dropping. He breaks away. Attempts to reach friendly territory. The engine seizes. He force lands in a field near Grodziec. Survives. Returns to his unit on foot 2 days later. By 800 hours, September 1st, the Polish Air Force has flown over 250 fighter sorties. Confirmed victories: total 11 German aircraft, 5 bombers, 4 fighters, 2 reconnaissance aircraft. Polish losses total 14 aircraft destroyed, 7 pilots killed, 9 aircraft damaged requiring major repair. The loss rate, approximately 8% of sorties flown, is sustainable for perhaps 3 days before fighter strength collapses entirely. September 2nd through 5th follow the same pattern. Daily Polish sorties average 200. German sorties exceed 1,000. Polish pilots claim between 5 and 8 German aircraft destroyed daily. Actual German losses, per Luftwaffe records, total approximately 4 to 6 aircraft daily. Polish losses average 10 to 15 fighters daily, including both combat and operational losses. The mathematics are inexorable. Poland begins the campaign with approximately 150 operational fighters. Daily losses of 12 reduce strength by 8% per day. After 1 week, operational strength falls below 100 aircraft, after 2 weeks, below 50 aircraft. The German advantage, already overwhelming, increases daily as Polish strength evaporates, but the P.11C pilots fight with remarkable skill given their equipment disadvantage. Several achieve multiple victories. Podporucznik Stanisław Skalski, flying P.11C from the 142nd Escadra, shoots down 4 German aircraft in the campaign's first week. He survives, escapes to Britain, eventually achieves 18 victories, flying Hurricanes and Spitfires. Porucznik Witold Urbanowicz, 111th Escadra, claims 4 victories in September, later achieves 17 flying with the RAF. These pilots succeed through exploiting the P.11C's strengths. Its excellent visibility allows early target acquisition. Polish pilots spot German formations minutes before interception, positioning advantageously. The open cockpit, uncomfortable in winter, provides unrestricted hearing. Pilots detect engine sounds earlier than German pilots in enclosed cockpits, gaining seconds of warning. The tight turning ability allows defensive maneuvers impossible in faster aircraft. Multiple Polish pilots survive attacks by reversing hard into pursuing Messerschmitts. The German pilots, accustomed to opponents attempting to escape, find themselves targeted during what should be certain kills. The gull wing configuration, providing clear forward visibility during turns, allows Polish pilots to track targets throughout maneuvers, while German pilots lose sight periodically. The rugged construction contributes to survival. The all-metal airframe absorbs battle damage better than fabric-covered biplanes, still equipping some air forces. Podporucznik Michał Mielżyński's P.11C returns from combat September 7th with over 60 bullet holes. The control surfaces, fabric-covered, are shredded. The fuselage shows multiple penetrations. The engine has 2 damaged cylinders, but the aircraft remains flyable. Lands successfully. Undergoes repair. It returns to service 3 days later. The Bristol Mercury engine proves remarkably resilient. Air-cooled radial engines, with multiple cylinders arranged around a central crankshaft, continue functioning despite individual cylinder damage. Porucznik Leopold Pamula completes a mission. September 11th, after ground fire, destroys 1 cylinder completely. The engine runs rough but produces sufficient power for controlled flight. He lands at an improvised field. The aircraft undergoes field repairs, returns to service. But resilience and skill cannot overcome numbers. German numerical superiority increases as Polish strength decreases. By September 10th, Polish fighter strength falls below 50 operational aircraft. Spare parts are exhausted. Maintenance facilities are destroyed or abandoned during retreats. Fuel supplies run short. Several P.11C fighters sit idle at field airstrips, undamaged but immobilized by lack of fuel or ammunition. The campaign's final phase sees desperate measures. Technicians cannibalize damaged aircraft to keep fewer aircraft operational. Pilots fly 4 or 5 sorties daily, exhausting themselves physically and mentally. Some units combine survivors from multiple escadras to form composite units with sufficient strength for missions. September 17th. The Soviet Union invades from the east. Polish forces, already overwhelmed by Germany, now face a 2-front war. Fighter units redirect to meet the new threat. The P.11Cs, designed for combat against modern fighters, now engage Soviet I-15 and I-16 biplanes and monoplanes. The performance gap is smaller. Polish pilots achieve several victories, but Soviet numerical advantage mirrors the German advantage. The additional front simply accelerates Polish collapse. By September 20th, organized resistance effectively ends. Individual Polish units continue fighting, but coordinated defense is impossible. Remaining P.11C fighters scatter. Some fly to Romania, where crews intern. 36 P.11Cs reach Romanian territory. The Romanian Air Force seizes them, eventually operates them in training roles. Some fighters hide in remote areas, abandoned when fuel exhausts or damage accumulates. Others are destroyed by their pilots to prevent capture. A few continue flying partisan support missions into early October, operating from forest clearings, supplied by sympathetic civilians. The final recorded P.11C combat sortie occurs October 6th. Podporucznik Mirosław Wojciechowski, flying one of the last operational aircraft, attacks a German reconnaissance Do-17 near Koch. He damages the bomber, forcing it to withdraw, then lands in a field, destroys his aircraft, escapes on foot. The September campaign ends officially the same day. Polish Air Force claims during the campaign total over 120 German aircraft destroyed. German records, more reliable than overclaiming inherent in combat reporting, show 285 Luftwaffe aircraft lost to all causes in Poland. Polish fighters probably accounted for 100 to 120 of these, with the remainder destroyed by anti-aircraft fire, accidents, or operational losses. The P.11C losses total approximately 100 aircraft destroyed in combat. An additional 30 are written off due to battle damage or accidents. Approximately 50 survive to reach Romania or remain hidden in Poland. Pilot casualties exceed 100 killed, missing, or captured. These numbers, while representing catastrophic defeat, demonstrate Polish pilots fought effectively despite impossible odds. The P.11C, obsolete by 1939 standards, proved capable of destroying modern German aircraft when properly employed. The approximately 1-to-1 exchange ratio, while unsustainable given numerical disadvantages, compares favorably to other defeated air forces in early World War II battles. The French Air Force, for example, lost over 1,000 aircraft during the Battle of France in 1940, claiming approximately 700 German aircraft destroyed. The actual German loss rate was approximately 450 aircraft. French pilots in more modern fighters achieved exchange ratios worse than Polish pilots in obsolete aircraft. This performance reflects Polish pilot quality more than aircraft capability. Polish pilot training, though abbreviated compared to German standards, emphasized individual initiative and aggressive tactics. Polish tactical doctrine, developed during the 1930s, stressed altitude advantage, surprise, concentration of force. These principles, when circumstances allowed their application, produced results, but circumstances rarely favored application. The Germans held perpetual numerical and technological superiority. Polish fighters, dispersed among field armies, operated without centralized control. Communication systems, primitive by German standards, prevented coordinated response to threats. Polish pilots fought individually or in small groups, never achieving the mass formations that might concentrate force effectively. Post-war analysis by both Polish and German military authorities concludes the P.11C was inadequate for 1939 combat. Its performance disadvantages were too severe. Its armament was too light. Its fixed landing gear created excessive drag. No amount of pilot skill could fully compensate. Yet the same analyses acknowledge the P.11C represented impressive achievement given Poland's industrial and economic constraints. Poland in the 1930s was a relatively poor agricultural nation recovering from 3 partition wars. The country possessed limited industrial capacity, minimal strategic resources, small population base. Designing and producing an indigenous fighter that briefly equaled world standards represented remarkable accomplishment. The gull-wing configuration. Puławski's revolutionary contribution influenced aircraft design worldwide. Several nations experimented with similar configurations. The French Arsenal VG-33, developed 1939, used a gull-wing layout. The Japanese Kawasaki Ki-64 prototypes featured inverted gull wings. The American VOD F-4U Corsair, one of the war's most successful fighters, employed an inverted gull wing primarily for landing gear geometry, but also citing visibility advantages. The P.11C's combat record, though brief and ultimately unsuccessful, demonstrated that obsolescent aircraft remained dangerous in skilled hands. German pilots, accustomed to easy victories against inferior opponents, received sharp lessons over Poland. Several Luftwaffe units reported surprise at Polish fighter aggressiveness and capability. Intelligence assessments, prepared after the campaign, warned that Polish tactics and pilot quality were superior to Polish equipment. Future opponents with better equipment would pose serious threats. These warnings proved accurate. Polish pilots escaping to France and Britain formed fighter squadrons equipped with modern aircraft, flying Hurricanes and Spitfires. Polish pilots achieved outstanding success. The 302nd Polish Fighter Squadron became the highest-scoring RAF unit during the Battle of Britain. Polish pilots flying with French units achieved significant victories during the Battle of France. Władysław Gnish, the pilot who scored the war's first Allied victories, exemplifies this trajectory. After escaping Poland, he fought with French and British forces, achieving multiple additional victories. He survived being shot down, captured, and wounded, eventually reaching Canada, where he settled after the war. In '89, 50 years after that first morning combat, Gnish met Frank Neubert, the German pilot who had killed his commander. The two men, former enemies, became friends. They appeared together at commemorations and historical conferences. Their reconciliation symbolized post-war Polish-German relations more effectively than any diplomatic treaty. Today, several P.11C fighters survive in museums. The Polish Aviation Museum in Krakow displays a restored example. The Polish Army Museum in Warsaw exhibits another. Additional examples exist in private collections and foreign museums. These aircraft, preserved and restored, represent Poland's determination to resist overwhelming force, to fight despite impossible odds, to maintain dignity through catastrophic defeat. The Muzeum Lotnictwa Polskiego in Kraków houses the most famous surviving P.11C. The aircraft sits in climate-controlled display. Fabric control surfaces taut, metal panels polished, Bristol Mercury engine gleaming. Visitors photograph it. Read information placards. Learn about September 1939. Children point at the unusual gull wing. Adults read casualty figures, loss rates. Tactical analyses. Few visitors understand what they are seeing. They see an obsolete aircraft, primitive by modern standards, fixed landing gear, open cockpit, 2 machine guns. The statistics seem inadequate. 390 kilometers per hour, maximum speed, 645 horsepower engine, 400 rounds of ammunition. How could this aircraft challenge Germany's might? But those who understand see different truths. They see an aircraft designed by a brilliant engineer who died before seeing his work vindicated. They see a machine built by a poor nation determined to defend itself despite limited resources. They see a weapon that represented cutting-edge technology for precisely 4 years before obsolescence overtook it. They see a fighter flown by pilots who knew they faced defeat but fought anyway. On September 1st, 1939, at 0530 hours, when Władysław Gnish climbed into his P.11C and pursued German bombers despite having just watched his commander die. He represented something more important than tactical aviation doctrine. He represented refusal to accept inevitable defeat, determination to resist despite impossible odds, willingness to fight knowing survival was unlikely. The P.11C gave him the tools for that fight. Not perfect tools, not modern tools, but tools that functioned, that allowed skill to matter, that provided just enough capability to make resistance meaningful rather than symbolic. 159 fighters against 2,000. 390 kilometers per hour against 470. 2 guns against 4 guns and cannon. Fixed gear against retractable gear. Open cockpit against enclosed cockpit. The mathematics guaranteed defeat. But mathematics cannot measure courage. Statistics cannot quantify determination. Technical specifications cannot describe the moment when a pilot, watching his commander fall, accelerates toward enemy aircraft anyway. That moment, repeated hundreds of times through September 1939, defined the P.11C's legacy more accurately than any performance chart. The gull wing, Zygmunt Puławski's innovation, gave Polish pilots visibility their enemies lacked. They saw death approaching clearly, unobstructed by engine cowlings or structural members. They saw the odds they faced, the numerical superiority they opposed, the technological disadvantages they endured. They saw everything, and they fought anyway. That clarity of vision, literal and metaphorical, remains the P.11C's truest memorial.